Oh boy. This one's gonna get me in trouble, isn't it? What's going on, everybody? This is Sean of Raw Select Music, and today I want to talk about that album that everybody else is talking about right now. That's that new Nas, Kanye West album, Nasir. Out of all the projects that Nas had, or not Nas, but Kanye had announced, the one that really, that I was the most interested in was the Kanye West Nas team up. I really like Kanye as a producer. I'm not as a huge fan of him as a rapper, which I'll go into a little bit more detail later on in this video. And I am a huge fan of Nas's first album, Illmatic. It definitely deserves its classic status. And I would definitely put it, if not in my top 5, definitely in my top 10 favorite hip-hop albums. So I figured I might as well strike while the iron's hot and, milk this internet trend for what it's worth, even though I'm not getting any money for this. But I did think I thought it would be a great opportunity to share some of my thoughts and opinions on one of the most controversial people in hip-hop, that being Kanye West, and also talk about Nas a little bit as well, because quite honestly, I was really looking forward to this, and I was kind of hoping for a return to form with Nas. Now, I have to say, full disclosure, I've only listened to the album once. Thank you, bootleg streams on YouTube, which unfortunately have all been taken down. I don't have any streaming services, so I haven't given the album a listen to. I haven't listened to the album again since Friday when I first initially heard it. And I didn't really want to do this as a formal review. I kind of wanted to do this as a bit of a long ramble and just see kind of where this goes. And I also do want to say that before I do actually start dissecting the little bits and pieces that I remember from this album, I generally walked away with a positive feeling from this album, and I definitely think it's worth checking out. However, if you are really going into this album expecting a return to form, a back to the glory days, Illmatic Part 2, you're definitely not going to be getting this with this album. And it sort of makes me wonder if, does Nas really have anything left to say? I don't know, that's probably a really controversial opinion, but I do kind of think at this point, Nas may not need to ever put out an album, again for the rest of his career. But we'll see. Let me talk a little bit about this album, let me talk a little bit about Kanye, let me talk a little bit about Nas, and yeah, let's kind of see where this video goes. This should be interesting. So I really wanted to split this video into two halves because I was definitely more interested going into this album to hear what Kanye was going to do than what Nas was going to do. Because, quite honestly, I feel like Nas gave me exactly what I expected. And I'll go a little bit more in detail when I get to that part of the video. The real reason I was interested in hearing this album was what Kanye was going to do on it. I have to say up front, I am not the biggest Kanye West fan, at least in terms of his musical output. I like a lot of the beats that he's done throughout the years, whether it was producing for Common or Talib Kweli. That beat that he did for Get By still ranks as one of my favorite raucous era beats of all time. Really love that track, and I thought I still had a copy of it, and it appears that it has disappeared from my record collection. But that out of the way, I was really curious with all the production that Kanye has done throughout the years. His style has shifted quite a bit. From the super soul-heavy, gargantuan production of his early work to the heavily auto-tuned and more poppy sounds from 808s and Heartbreaks, to the sort of unclean, dirty, asymmetrical loops that were on The Life of Pablo. The one thing you can always say about Kanye is he's always interesting. And I feel like Kanye definitely had something to prove with not only this album, but the albums that came out before this, the Pusha T, Kid Cudi, and his own solo album. I really wanted to see what direction he was going to go with this. And to some degree, he sort of went in the direction that I expected, sort of taking Madlib's style of really free-form, real loose sample chopping and putting his own spin on that. And there are definitely some really, really cool moments on it. Some of the tracks I really, really liked. And the one that really sticks out in my head, even despite the fact that I've only listened to the album once, was Cops. The way that he sampled the Slick Rick track, which I have to say, I'm not... I don't know as much about Slick Rick as I probably should, but that voice is immediately recognizable. And the way that he layered the original sample on, and then threw another sort of detuned layer of the same sample on top of each other, and added some sort of subtle, creepy synth work on top of it. I have to say that's some of that was the first part in time on the album that really had me go, oh shit, this is some crazy Kanye. This is some crazy Kanye beat shit. And that was definitely the first time that I really thought, okay, there's definitely a reason that Kanye is as lauded of a producer as he is. But I have to say, in general, I didn't find the beats on here all that great. The first couple of tracks, and I think I heard it, I'm gonna have to. The first couple of tracks, like, where did the album start? Because I think the version that I had heard of it had a different track list. And it started off on the two more Madlib-y sounding beats, which I thought, all right, these are solid. They had interesting sample source. I liked the guitar on one of the tracks, and there was definitely some good knock to it. It definitely had a pretty solid head nod factor to it. And then the track that followed that also was in sort of the same sort of vein. And it was familiar, it felt good. I generally came out pretty positive. But I feel like the album really sort of takes a turn for the worst after Cops, which, according to the track list here, Cops is the second song on the album. And on the stream that I had heard, Cops was actually the third track. And everything after Cops, I was kind of either meant to, I really don't need this. And I do have to say, the Not For Radio track was borderline skippable. I was really getting sick of it. And it felt jarring, incomplete, and just, it was an absolute mess. And it felt like there was the presence of a really, really good idea, but it didn't feel like it had the follow through. So overall, I'd say Kanye did a solid job as a producer, and I don't know if he's got any more records coming out this year, but I have to say, I did walk away feeling pretty positive about Kanye's production on here, and it definitely has me interested to hear, like, the Pusha T Daytona, which, again, Pusha T I'm not all that familiar with. And I do actually want to listen to Yee. I haven't gotten around to that one yet. And the Kid See Ghost, Kid Cudi project, the little bits and pieces of it that I have heard, makes me believe that that is the gem in the 2018 crown of all the projects that Kanye has put out this year. So solid effort from Kanye, but now we have to shift to what I think is the weaker of the two aspects of this album, and that's Nas's performance. And this is probably where the hate mail is going to start coming. If anyone actually ends up watching this video. I don't know. I don't know if anybody's actually going to end up watching this. So let's talk about Nas. I have to say right off the bat, and I did say it earlier on in this video, that Illmatic, I think, is an essential hip-hop album. If you're a fan of hip-hop, you should have this in your collection. It is the perfect blend of amazing hip-hop production, even for the time, even up until now. I still love the production on here. Pete Rock, Q-Tip, Large Professor, and DJ Premier all absolutely knock it out of the park with some of the best work of their career. And then you also have Nas's lyrical dexterity on that album. It is absolutely obscene that I've had this album now for probably 10 years or so. I bought it when I first moved to Japan. I can still go back and decipher new lines from that album. It is absolutely replayable. The lyrical imagery on it is absolutely incredible. The rhyme patterns, it's got hooks. It is quite possibly one of the greatest hip-hop albums of all time, and it is absolutely deserving of its classic status. The unfortunate problem of coming out with a classic album at the beginning of your career is it sort of looms over you for the rest of your musical career. And it's obvious, not only from this newest album, and from his previous releases, that Nas was never going to make anything as good as Illmatic. And I do feel like a lot of legacy artists, and not just in hip-hop, but in other genres as well, I look at Aphex Twin in sort of the same regard, that his greatest musical achievements are behind him, and honestly, if he never put out another album, it wouldn't affect his legacy at all. And anything else we get from an Aphex Twin, a Square Pusher, Autechre, Nas, Jay-Z, name your favorite hip hop artist to insert them here. I don't think they necessarily have to put any more music out. And the one thing that I was really going into this album hoping was that this would be another essential Nas album. And the sad fact of the matter is, despite the fact that I think Nas delivers a solid performance, this is not an essential album. I have to say that Nas definitely has, he hasn't lost his step, at least from a technical aspect. He does really, really well at keeping up with some of the erraticness of Kanye's production. And honestly, he doesn't seem like he's lost any of his gift for imagery. Didn't really seem like he had lost his flow at all. He really felt like he was in tune with the music the entire time, and he never felt like he was getting lost, except in the moments where the music itself actually overpowered Nas's voice. But then comes the issue of lyrical content. I can't go that deep into this because, once again, I've only listened to this album once, and quite honestly, I don't know if I'm going to come back to this album ever again. I do recommend that you check it out, and I'll probably have to keep reiterating this throughout the rest of this video just to say that I don't hate this album. I think it's solid, and if I were to give it a number score, it'd probably be somewhere between 6.5 to a 7. I definitely feel like there are better projects worth checking out, but in terms of the two names on this project, I was really expecting something out of this world stellar. and what I got was a solid... Sorry about that, folks. Another record delivery. So, the lyrical content on this album pretty much went exactly the way that I expected. It talks a lot about Nas's married life, where he was, where he is now, bragging about it, being sort of mournful of some of, or not retrospective, but introspective, there we go, about some of the things he's done in the past, and talking a little bit, of course, about police brutality. So all of these things are not inherently bad things to talk about, especially on a hip-hop album. I will say, and as much as I hate making comparisons to other artists when reviewing their music, I gotta say, Run the Jewels did this kind of stuff better, especially when it came to the subject of police brutality. Early paints a much more interesting and vivid picture than Nas does on, example, the song Cops, which, funny enough, Kanye, for the one verse that he actually has on here, actually creates a much more intriguing and interesting and involving and more vivid picture than Nas does on his entire album. And I think that's what kind of really, at the end of the day, bothers me. Illmatic had a lyrical quality, and here I am making a comparison to an artist's previous work, but it's sort of hard to review anything that Nas does at this point without going back to, he basically created a standard for lyricism in hip-hop that I think people are still trying to achieve to this day. And I think even Nas is trying to do that. At least even meet his own expectations or meet his own standards of lyricism. And I'll say this about the lyricism on this album. It's competent. It's by no means bad. It's definitely not like laughably bad. And trust me, Kanye has definitely had his share of laughably bad lyrics throughout the years. But there's nothing on this album that stands out to me. And I definitely feel like even if I had gone back and listened to this a few more times, there'd probably still not be anything that stands out to me. And if I'm going into a Nas album, I'm going in expecting to at least get one or two memorable hooks from it. Because he's definitely done it on tracks in the past. Made You Look is probably one of my favorite post-Illmatic tracks that he's put out. I even like Hip Hop Is Dead. I liked Don for a little bit, but I eventually found that beat got kind of obnoxious after a while. Maybe it's still a decent track. I don't know, just not really into it. So overall, I feel like Nas sort of didn't quite deliver in the lyrical aspect of this album, and ultimately not having anything strong lyrically or memorable lyrically or something intriguing lyrically just sort of makes this album kind of a one and done for me. If I went back and listened to it, I probably wouldn't complain. I definitely will probably go back and listen to Cops in the future. And that track alone actually kind of makes me want to pick up the vinyl, because I really do like that song. But I don't know. I don't really think that this is a good project that I'm going to be coming back to all that much. If I'm going to end this video on a positive note, I have to say that keeping the album brief definitely does this album a lot of favors. In a sea of bloated, gargantuan slog of hip-hop albums, the fact that this is only 26 minutes makes it very digestible. And I guess maybe to contradict what I had said before, that might make me want to go back and listen to it again in the future. And if you've been skipping around in this video, or if you decided to skip to the end to figure out what my final thoughts on it are, I recommend it. I definitely think that you should give it a listen and Let me know what your thoughts and opinions on this album are. I'd really definitely like to know where you think that I went wrong or maybe even overstepped my bounds, but I have a feeling that a lot of people are actually going to agree with me on this review more than I might think. So, and as far as a review score, and I don't usually do this, but if you really need to attach a number to this album, it's a 6.5 or a 7, recommended, probably won't visit again. So yeah, that's my thoughts and opinion on the Nas Kanye album, Nasir. I think it's Nasir Jones. I really do want to know what you guys think. Part of the reason that I wanted to do this video was not only to boost my view count, so if you did end up coming to watch this video, thank you very much. But that little bit of sarcasm and cynicism aside, I really do want to know what most people are feeling with this album. Did you really like it? Did you absolutely love it? And if you loved it, what aspects of it did you really, really love? And if you hated it, definitely let me know what you hated about it. I'm just sort of meh on this project. As always, I can't really post musical links for this one, so I won't really bother posting or mentioning my WordPress blog. But if you do want to listen to some of the other music that I've been checking out these days, definitely go into the description, head over to my WordPress blog or Steam It blog, because that's where I talk about the music that I'm really into. And as well as definitely head over to my Mixcloud, because that's where I've been posting my Raw Select radios, which I'm on a little bit of a hiatus right now because I am knee-deep in a new DJ mix, and it has been completely absorbing. I wasn't even sure if I was going to get this video out today, but I did figure that I had some time to kill, and I do like to try to hold myself to my once-a-week upload schedule. So I know this is probably a bit long in the tooth and a bit rambly, but if you did stick it out to the end, thank you very much for watching. Like and subscribe. I try to put out a video every week. Next week's video will probably end up being a recent records pickup video, because I bought a shit ton of records and I'm kind of sort of regretting it, but it does make for easy YouTube content, so you can definitely look forward to that video in the future. Until then, thank you very much, have a nice day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace!